You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
In some breaking news that shocked absolutely nobody with a functioning brain, Marvel seems to be bringing the Russos back on board. It's hard to think of any reason why they would need to bring them back. Trying to come up with a single reason Marvel would need to rehire their most famous directors again is almost impossible. I mean, what could have driven them to do that? They've been doing so well these days. It just makes no sense why they'd need the Russos back.
You serious?
I had to hold myself back from laughing there because, as we all know, Marvel has royally screwed themselves beyond belief. That's not an exaggeration, by the way, because it really is difficult to believe how badly they screwed up such a successful franchise. Marvel was riding high after Endgame. They'd proven they could turn characters like Ant-Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy into billion-dollar hits. That's how powerful the MCU had become. Just being attached to Marvel in any way, shape, or form was a ticket to success. Then we saw how they handled things after the big Avengers movie. They lost all their successful creatives like James Gunn, Jon Favreau, and Joss Whedon. More importantly, they lost the Russos. Pretty much every movie they made, whether it was Winter Soldier, Civil War, or Infinity War, ended up at the top of the list of fan favorite Marvel movies. And for some unknown reason, they actually thought they could run this ship without all of those creatives who mapped out the MCU and made it a success, so they let them go.
You guys suck at everything.
Fans have been saying for years that we'd all know Marvel's all new, all different plan had failed the moment they brought back Robert Downey Jr., and that was already rumored to be happening before the Russos were brought back in. Now that they're involved, I'd put all the Avengers back on the table, because actors are known to return to roles when the creatives they enjoyed working with are attached to them. We already heard Thor and Hulk were coming back, but they had a substantial presence in phases 4 and 5, so that's not that surprising. I'd expect RDJ and Chris Evans to hop on board, and maybe even Scarlett Johansson. Just recently, we got a pretty crazy rumor about what RDJ's return could look like. And of course, there's the obvious fan theory about Chris Evans playing the Hydra Supreme version of Captain America. Both of those have the iconic heroes becoming villains, which would be the ultimate middle finger to fans, because we all know Marvel would use it as some pathetic attempt to show their new line of heroes are better, so for Marvel's sake, I hope they're not true. There are rare cases like Ben Affleck as Batman, where he got screwed so hard and toyed around with that he'd never come back to DC. Can't really blame him there. His tenure as Batman was so convoluted, he probably understood it more while he was drunk than when he was sober. The Avengers are a completely different story. Most of them seem to have had great experiences with Marvel. The only person who might hesitate at the Russos' involvement is Chris Hemsworth. Last time they were involved, he went from being the most badass hero in Infinity War to crying in a fat suit.
Look how they massacred my boy.
The interesting part of this report is the claim that the Russos are being brought in on various fronts, with the Avengers movie being their first priority. If you look at the timeline here, there's not much else they could work on. Most of these projects have filmed already or have completed scripts and a cast, so what else could they be doing? This is just an early guess, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've already got the Russos working on the X-Men. Fans have been guessing for years that the end of Secret Wars would rewrite reality or send some energy wave out that creates mutants, so it's possible Marvel wants the Russos to set up the X-Men and even be involved with future X-Men projects. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to the idea of bringing them back, but I just don't know how much it would really fix. They directed some of my favorite MCU movies like Infinity War, Civil War, and especially Winter Soldier, so they definitely have the ability to make quality superhero content. I just don't know if Marvel's gonna let them do that these days. I left out Endgame on purpose because while I still think it's a great movie, the years have not been kind to it. Fat Thor was a mistake that annoyed the hell out of me, on top of other things like puny Professor Hulk and the cheesy A-Force setup that looked like a cheap knockoff of Charlie's Angels. What a worthless scene that was. It never even got paid off after that, because even Marvel wouldn't be stupid enough to spend money on a movie they know damn well nobody in their right mind would watch.
Speaking of things nobody asked for.
What makes that Thanos line at the beginning so funny is how true it is. It's hilarious they actually had that in their movie, and now every decision Marvel makes can be summed up with that quote. I don't necessarily think these guys are going to magically fix all of Marvel's problems, because the general audience tends not to care about this behind the scenes stuff. Their involvement alone doesn't help. They need to be allowed to make the kind of content the MCU used to let them make. That being said, bringing back Iron Man, the real Captain America, and the directors who made their biggest movies are all signs that they know their post-Endgame experiment failed. Nobody bought into this all new, all different crap the same way they didn't buy it in the comics. So Marvel has no choice but to rely on nostalgia and the classics if they ever want to hear the words profit or box office records again.